Something else that they're trying to argue here is the idea that the historical Russian desire for a warm water port is beyond its possible. It's not really worth seriously considering, is really what they're saying. Um, I think that that might be a big part of the reason that the Russians are so buddy buddy with Iran. Um, and that's probably their best chance. Of course, outside of um, trying to find a way to hold control of the uh, base in Syria, um, which of course is a big part of what the conflict in Syria is about, and the conflict in Libya was about. So they are kind of missing a little bit of evidence there. There was a warm water port in Libya, and there is one in Syria, but these are outside of the Russian mainland proper, right? So they have to act as transit points, and they can't really. The Russians can leave, like military stuff there, but it doesn't really help in terms of increasing trade, which is the whole point, um, right? So you want to have a warm water port so that you can increase your trade abilities, and then you need um, the cruise ships to protect the commercial vessels, right? Commercial vessels without military vessels without commercial vessels is pointless. Um, So I mean that's the thing, right? But I mean they do have that network, and if they could find a way to integrate one of those ports, they'd be laughing. The big problem with Iran, of course, is that they're on the Persian Gulf, and the Americans are kind of invested in the Persian Gulf, as they are in the Black Sea. This is, um, I mean, it's the issue all the way around, right? It's the containment issue. Um, One other thing to point out about that, though, besides the Iran thing, and the Iran thing probably is something to watch for, um, even if it's kind of more pushing towards the Iran-India border than it is, right in the Gulf. That's a corridor that, well, I mean, I think America's burned its bridges with Iran pretty badly. It's hard to see how there's going to be any kind of legitimate cooperation with Iran for any time in the foreseeable future. So the idea of the Russians being able to build kind of like a safe corridor through Iran is probably less infeasible than one might think. And as is the case with so much of what Russia has been able to do over the last 2 years or so, it's rooted in a failure of American policy. America has made some really bad choices over the last 10 years. Um, and Obama has been, worse than Bush in a lot of ways, in making really strategic errors. Um, really bad strategic errors that are going to harm them. And this whole idea of isolating and harming, they tried to, like the sanctions against Iran, like the kids dying, and Iran is not going to go out of its way to do anything for America. And if the Russians want to, you know, um, ship some medicine in exchange for a safe corridor for goods, I think the Iranians will be happy to oblige. So there's that. But the other thing to keep in mind is that we are dealing with a warming climate. So, just how good are those ports going to be in the Far East? Um, but I mean, I think the issue in the eastern part of Russia is less that it's accessible. I mean, they've got open access, but it's more that like around Vladivostok, total open access. There's no real issue there. It's more that it's so far that it defeats the point. Um, you send something in. Well, I mean, first of all, where are you sending it in from? And second of all, once you do send it in, um, you're sending it across the entire landmass of Asia. The whole point is to reduce transportation costs. It doesn't really make any sense, right? But I mean, it's still something to keep in mind um, as that opens up. Um, that that rail system across Asia is it is the thing that will decide whether Eurasia becomes European or Chinese dominated. Um, it's hard to see how Russia and China, in the broader size of things, can avoid integration um, within the context of a functioning rail line. I know that sounds very 19th century, and maybe it is, but it is still absolutely true. Um, the North American continent is widely understood to have coalesced into nation states and national identities because of the rail that was built. I cannot see how one can build railways from Beijing to Moscow across a wide expanse, of Asia, this whole Iranian, Turkish, Mongolian, Chinese space, and not have it uh, become an insular power of itself. It's hard to see how you could come up with anything besides the resurrection of the Mongolian Empire. It's just a question of whether that empire places its capital in Moscow or Beijing, and that's so key. Um, Actually, I say this a lot. Westerners tend to misunderstand World War II. World War II was a conflict between Germany and Russia, and it was a conflict that the Russians won, but were not able to complete their victory in because the Americans saved the Germans from total defeat at the hands of the Russians. World War III, despite everything that's happening, World War III will be a conflict between Russia and China for dominance over Eurasia. You're looking at superior Chinese finances and technology and political systems and everything else. I guess the sheer size of Russia, um, which is very similar, actually, to the conflict that happened on the other side of the landmass, uh, 75 years ago. But yeah, the warm water ports. I don't think. I don't think that that Russia's increasing cooperation with Iran is happening in a bubble in regarding the context of these warm water ports that Russia has indeed been quite interested in for quite a long